Welcome to the Leader Mentality Show with Rob Clemens. We've got an amazing show today. And when I say amazing, I say a lot of shows are going to be good, but this one is actually world class. We're going up to a whole other level. Our guest is a very special one. And before I get to the introduction, I do want to talk about, we're just coming off the elections recently. A lot of things are happening for 2025 that are going to be a little different direction. And what we're hoping always is for better education, better living conditions. Let's give the American person a chance to own a home. Let's do some stuff like that. And so I've got a person on the show with me today. She is a leader in our state of South Carolina. She's an entrepreneur, a very successful one, champion of workforce development, and she has been a lieutenant governor since 2019. Welcome to the show, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette.
Rob, it's great to be with you again. I know our paths cross when it comes to economic development and workforce on a lot of different places we connect.
It's been really fun having you representing the state. And I say that because, this year I was the State of South Carolina Home Builders Association president. I am very tapped into the economics community, as you know, and of course a business owner. So it's nice to know we have leadership that watches out for the little business, watch out for the small guy once in a while. Yeah. And you guys have been doing that, so well done.
Thank you. Small business is the backbone of not just our state, but really of America. Small businesses employ more people than our large companies do.
It's great you say that, because I talked about the prosperity of Americans and, the fact that you could come to this country, own your own land, start your own business, change your family's trajectory. So very cool stuff. Well, you've been working on a lot. What's going on in the state of South Carolina this year?
Well, there's a lot going on, right? Mm-hmm. Fastest growing state. Really working at workforce. Mm-hmm. Workforce is the big thing. And it's not just here in South Carolina. It's across the country, Rob. Everybody is saying the same thing. We need more people. We need people in specific skill sets. And so I think we do a great job here in South Carolina, and it's thankful to our technical college, right?
Yeah.
Because, it is really like the ingredient in our secret sauce that really makes us stand out. Mm-hmm. Our technical colleges are very nimble. They move very quickly. We can go to them when we know we're going to have a deficiency and say, hey, how do we start up a program, right? I use the one with boat builders. We have 28 boat builders here in our state.
Wow.
And they were really struggling for a workforce. And, there was no place for them to go. But right here at Horry Georgetown Tech, Dr. Ford, what an amazing lady. Mm-hmm. I went to her because I knew they had an outboard motors curriculum. And I said, hey, what if we bring a boat building curriculum to kind of complement that?
Yeah.
And Dr. Ford was on it starting in August. We had the first group going through in the new boat builder curriculum. That is what makes South Carolina what we are. It's a game changer if you're an industry and you're saying, wow, we have government, we have technical colleges that are that nimble that when you hear our cry for help, you're right. You're Johnny on the spot, right?
I do. I love that. There's a feeling sometimes when you think about, and I don't mean in this case, but you always think all the red tape you got to get through. If you just ask your common person, you said, hey, how long do you think it takes to get a new program through a college? I think most people would say, I don't know, 10 years. Yeah, so you guys are accelerating that.
Oh, yeah. We did it in less than a year. But I have to preempt that with the boat builders were great and that they had already started writing their curriculum because that's the big thing. Dr. Ford, that's the first thing she asked, where's the curriculum coming for, right? Because we want to make sure if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right, and we're going to give industry exactly what they need. Yeah,
that's amazing stuff. From your perspective, there are people in industries that need help. And so the home building industry, which I aforementioned, obviously that's been a years-long dynamic nationwide. And with South Carolina being one of the fastest growing states in the country, obviously that's going to be a big deal here, right?
Absolutely.
How do people get that message out to the people that can make that decision? So, for example, and we know about home building, but let's say that somebody's out there trying to, I'm going to use a terrible example. Somebody's trying to build a special kind of a bicycle, and they're like, we need more bicycle makers. How do you get that message out to people that can make the change?
So first and foremost, reach out to our local chambers and our Department of Commerce because they have great insight and know exactly who to talk to at our technical college system or what we need to do with internships. A lot of times, I'm a big fan of internships. I'm a big fan of youth employment. And so for me, it's how do we get everybody engaged, right? And so this is kind of a new concept. Kids want to know the why. So I want to tell you this great story, and I've been telling it everywhere. I was out at ZF Transmission, and I was touring because I have my YES initiative, my Youth Employment Initiative through the Department of Workforce. Okay. And I met this amazing young man. So he was walking around with me, and he was talking to me about the internship he had. He's a senior in high school. His kind of gut instinct was he was going to go to Clemson and get an engineering degree. But then he realized, like, I don't know, I really want to be more hands-on to what I'm doing. And so he found out about this internship and loves it. So he went into their mechatronics program. He's got an internship. He's going to continue to work up from there. He can work at ZF, and eventually ZF will send him to Clemson, right, to get his other, to get his bachelor's degree if that's what he wants. Yeah. And I said to him, what made you do this, right? This is kind of the road less traveled if you're a high school boy, right? I have a senior boy in high school. Right. And I said, how do we get your friends to do this? Like, how do we get them excited about it? And what he said blew my mind. He said, you need to explain the why. Why do you need them? Wow. Isn't that amazing? Like, I was like, I told Director Floyd, I'm like, you need to get a camera on this kid. Yeah, right, exactly. And this is what we have to tape and show every high schooler in South Carolina. But it was insightful to me, and I'm telling this story because I hope it reaches to your listeners, and we start doing a better job of telling kids why we need them. Oh, yeah. You know, we need you in advanced manufacturing because that iPhone that you have a death grip on every single day, right. That is advanced manufacturing, right? We need to reach out to kids and explain to them, like, what trades, like, you know, you talk about your industry. I mean, when kids come to the State House, I always ask them, like, my little quiz is like, think of the big house you want to live in one day and where that is. Who do you think lives in that house, right? Yeah. And they'll say the normal suspects, a doctor, a lawyer, a CEO. It's like, no. It's a plumber. It's an electrician. It's an HVAC guy. Kids don't know that, and they're blown away, and they're like, what do you mean? Plumbers? I mean, everybody needs a plumber. Every business, every household needs a plumber. Absolutely. Same thing with electrician. Same thing for HVAC. And we're here in sunny, beautiful Myrtle Beach. And just imagine what you would pay. And people laugh. I said this when I spoke at your association, but when I say this and I say, just think of how much you would pay in July when your HVAC went out, right? Yes. You will stroke a check for whatever that gentleman or lady comes and tells you it's going to cost to fix it. I mean, this is what you're saying. This is a supply and demand thing. Absolutely. We have a lot of demand. We have very little supply of you right now, young person that's looking at a career. Absolutely. And what does that do economically? It makes your services very, very pricey sometimes, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like there's a disconnect between parents and the kind of the message they're giving their kids who are coming up through school and what is actual reality? What I mean by that disconnect is I feel like a lot of parents are saying, no, little Johnny's going to go to college, get his degree, while little Johnny could have a great career working with his hands. I mean, is there a disconnect, and how do we fix that if there is? There's a huge disconnect. Yeah. So I'll tell you my story is my middle son has ADD, but God-given the smartest of all three of my children. Just naturally, he hears it, he remembers it, does great in school. Never liked school. Right. So didn't want to go to a four-year college, said, hey, Mom, I want to go to Greenville Tech. And I was like, great, right? My dad was a tool and die maker. It put a roof over our head. He put 4 kids through college. I mean, I did not realize, that was long before I was lieutenant governor. I did not realize how far the pendulum had swung, right? And we were looking at our trades and our technical colleges as second tier options. Until we're all sitting at the lacrosse field and I let my friends know that Joey's not going to Clemson, and they were shocked thinking he didn't get in. Like, how did he not get in, right? I'm like, he doesn't want to go. And that's when I realized, like, wow, this whole idea of what is worthwhile employment and what is not has really been skewed. So I think as leaders, and this is what we're talking about, right? Leaders, we, myself, the governor, we use our bully pulpit, we use our microphone to, like, educate parents and grandparents, because my grandparents were immigrants. Yeah. So when I said to my mother, who's 96, Joey's not going to go to college. he wants to go to Greenville Tech. She, like, it immediately scared her.
Oh, okay.
Because she was like, well, you know, because face it, we are a country of immigrants. And like when my grandparents came here, I can remember my dad telling us, when your grandfather came here, he came here with a pick and a shovel.
Right.
And he wanted me to not work as hard as him, and he wanted his grandkids to work even easier than me. Like, that was the sign of success. And so it's not of anybody's doing, it's just that became the litmus test. Like, I came here and I broke my back and I worked in a factory and it was hot, but those were the factories of a long time ago.
Right.
Those aren't the factories of today.
That's a good point.
But to somebody that's 96, to somebody who's in their 80s, to somebody who remembers their parents or grandparents working in a factory that didn't have heat, didn't have air conditioning, you know, it was maybe dirty, dark, and dangerous is what I say, right? Like, people would describe factories of the way back when as dirty, dark, and dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, people don't go into a factory with a toolbox, they go with a laptop.
That's right, yeah.
And everything's air conditioned and temperature controlled and noise reduced. I mean, this is so different, but people don't usually get the glimpse inside of manufacturing that I get to see, that the governor gets to see. So we have really taken that to heart to say, it is our job to get that message out.
Man.
And that's what we've been doing. And so I just encourage all leaders, when they hear the kind of conversations that was brought before me with my son Joey, that remember this, right? And I tell it, and my kids, by the way, hate when I like refer to them by name and talk about their story, but I do
We're
it
putting
anyway.
their names up across the screen as we speak.
But you know what it does? Yeah. And as a leader, I think it is so important for me to tell that story, because I would never want somebody out there to think, oh, well, she's saying, yeah, send your kid to a technical college, but she wouldn't send her own.
Right.
And so I tell that story because I want people to know that I did it. And it's a great thing. And you talk to kids who have gone through our technical, we have amazing colleges and universities. I am in no way
100%.
saying that you shouldn't go.
Sure. If
that's your path, like, you know, my youngest wants to be an architect. Today.
Yeah.
Today he wants to be an architect. So, I mean, that's, a four-year college is all he can do, right? He can't. But there are so many careers that you can start off in. And if you're a young person who maybe parents don't have the ability to send you to college, you don't want to get wrapped up in a lot of debt. There are ways to do it here in this state to minimize that. You could use your life scholarship to get your associate's degree in a technical college, get a job like my little friend at ZF Transmission. If one day he decides, you know, I do want to be an engineer.
Yeah.
Then get your employer to pay for that 2 years, and now, you know, now you have experience. Now you go in with a sense of know-how. I mean, it puts you at a whole different level for success readiness.
That's huge. Well, you hit so many great topics there. And one of the things I'll say right off the bat is, I feel like that a lot of times we get into this situation where this is about morale and self-esteem for kids.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you look at any kid, and I speak to a lot of Coastal Carolina students, I talk to HGTC students a lot of times, and I want to see them thrive, but I want to see them feel self-esteem and fulfillment in what they do. And when we get to the point where we're telling you the way to your self-esteem, the way to your greatness is a four-year college or any contrived path, I think it's kind of setting them up to feel like, oh, well, so if I fail at college, I'm a failure in a sense.
Exactly.
If I don't want to go to college, I'm a disappointment in a sense, right? So, but rather, what if you were the best in the world at anything? And I think that's the core of what we're looking at, right? You say, if somebody was the greatest ballerina of all time, if somebody's the greatest woodworker of all time, the amount of self-esteem they feel and the way that they'll do in this society and in life will be 10 times better, right?
Well, you know, my dad, I quote a lot of things that he says, and he passed away, and I'm sure he's up in heaven looking down laughing, you know, because you do turn into your parents, whether you want to or not.
Right. It's like those commercials where you're acting like your parents,
But my dad used to tell us, like when we got those first jobs, like, I don't care if you want to be a ditch digger, be the best ditch digger there is out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that was a message I got from my parents, which I think we have to stop worrying about what we think society wants us to do or wants our kids to do. And I think that's where so much of this got wrapped up. Like, your sense as a parent of if you did a good job or not was where your kids got into college or what they did.
Yes.
But like, I have talked to a lot of trade, you know, people that own like Corley Plumbing. Like early on in my career, I sat down with him and he said he gave this great story about how so many of his guys that that work for him now have bachelor degrees in like marketing or something that they never really wanted, right? But their guidance counselor and their parents told them, you got to go to college and get a degree.
Right.
So they get a very like generalized degree. They come out, they figure out they're not getting paid very much, and they don't like what they're doing. And so he said, what I end up doing is I send them to school, whether it's plumbing or HVAC or mechanical, right? And they end up using their job with me to pay off their college debt.
Absolutely.
But they're happy.
Well, and we didn't even talk about SC wins. So there's another thing that can be done. Let's take a quick time out. Yeah, so about SC wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a great thing. So SC wins, for any of your viewers that don't really know what that is what we have given. The governor, hugely supportive of this program, and what it did, it provided scholarships through our technical colleges for curriculums that we knew we were going to be deficient in workforce in, right? So advanced manufacturing, nursing, our trades, over-the-road truck driving, and then we have a fifth one. It's escaping me right now.
Right.
But, so if you fall into one of those criteria, let's say that you decided you graduated high school, and of course, like most 18-year-olds, you know everything, right? And so you decided you weren't going to need that college degree, you weren't going to need to go to technical college, and now your life scholarship has ended, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't go back and use that. And you find yourself like in a job that you don't feel is going to take you to the next level. We have an SC Wins program, and what that does is in one of those areas, if you decide to seek a degree in that, we can get you grant money to, you have to, and there's criteria, you have to have a B average, and you have to really be into this, and, we're not just giving you it and saying, let's keep exploring. We're not your parents. We're not going to let you, keep changing your major or whatever.
Right.
But what that does, it is taking people who have found themselves in what they would classify as a job that isn't going to take them to the next level or to raise a family of 4.
Sure.
And we give them opportunity.
Man, I love it.
And that has been a game changer, because when I first became lieutenant governor, I heard this horrible statistic that was brought to my desk. In South Carolina, back when I was elected into office, we were only at 41% of South Carolinians with secondary degrees or certifications.
Wow.
And we needed to be around 80 to 82%. Because of all the amazing jobs we have. We have Volvo, we have Mercedes, we have Boeing, we have BMW, we have Michelin, the biggest tire producer in the world. I mean, we have all these great jobs. So we had this deficiency. That's kind of where the birth of that came up. Is how do we fill this? And we have done a fantastic job using that program to really help fill the gaps. But there's still room. We still need people to get excited about it.
I mean, it's huge. And for those who are watching the show or listening today, you can go online and find out more about SC Wins. Now, let me ask you this. From a perspective of just looking at the students, I believe, and something we've been doing in the Home Builders Association, is sometimes people need to find people they can see themselves being.
Yep.
And so we created this program locally here, which was that there are young people who want to be in the industry. There are young people in the industry. I'm talking about home building right now. And so we said we need to start promoting those guys. And I don't mean promoting like job-wise. I mean, we need to promote that they're in this industry, having success, having self-esteem, and all those good things. So we started putting that out there to the people. We want to bring these to the school, because when I go out and talk to students, I'm like, you can be just like me. I mean, I'm kind of outside of the age range, right? But when they see a 19, 20-year-old kid driving an F-250, finding some good fulfillment on a day-to-day basis, I think they're listening.
I know.
Yeah.
They're their best salespeople.
Yes.
And that's why I tell that story about ZF Transmission, and that's why that young man, that's why I said to Dude, we got to get this young man on film.
Right.
Because it's his message that will resonate.
Yeah.
And I can tell you at least 5 stories off the top of my head just like that, right? Where, met a young man in the HVAC world. He was getting all of his certifications. He literally had done the calculation that his brother was graduating from law school about the same time he was graduating high school in this dual path program.
Yeah.
He was going to outpace the earning potential of his lawyer brother with zero college debt.
I mean, it's a funny reality that happens for some people, and I agree with you. You know, look, I'm a coastal Carolina grad, shants up always, but you know, I found myself after I graduated looking for a career in marketing, and I'm not going to even mention the company; they're still around. But I went in and said, hey, you know, I'm interested, put in an application, and they said, well, we start our marketing people at $18,000 a year. Now that was a little while back, but not as long back as you would think, and well, 18,000. Heck, I can work in retail making more than that.
Yeah.
And it kind of is an eye-opener, but what I realized at that point was a valuable lesson for anybody. If you're getting into a field that is saturated with applicants, then they can pay you a little less. The supply of you is very high, the demand maybe not as high, and so there is that correlation. So we could talk about this all day, right?
Oh, I mean, that's the message I give too,
Sure.
right? You want to make sure, like, that was what my dad had a great thing. When my three brothers and I, we'd sit down with him, and like I said, my dad was a tool and die maker. He worked really hard to put us through college, and so we had to sit down with him and explain what we wanted to do in college. And I mean, literally, and I'm not, hey, if you're an Egyptian studies major, more power to you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's super interesting.
Yeah.
But if I would have sat down at my kitchen table with my father and said, I want to be an Egyptian studies major, he'd have said, buy a book, how are you going to feed yourself? And I think that is like the message. I think for a long time, I've heard the message of kids is like, well, I want to do something that makes me happy. And I tell my kids, you're not going to be happy if you can't feed yourself, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I just think we have to look at all these careers and see what is going to be available to them when they come out. And that's where education becomes a big thing. How do we get the skill sets to our kids starting from kindergarten that are going to make them workforce ready in the future? And you really have to now drill down into what does that future look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think if somebody has a gift, you know, a gift for marketing, I fully say go for that gift in marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Go for that gift in, you know, accounting or whatever that thing is. But
hey, go easy. I'm an accountant. Everybody needs accountants.
yeah, right, that's right.
Everybody needs an accountant.
Go for it. You know. Are you still for hire on that?
Yeah. I can still do a tax return with the best of them. Let me tell you.
I'll be seeing her later, as a matter of fact. But no, but the thing is that at the end of the day, you know, chase your passion, chase your dream, but your dream doesn't have to be somebody else's dream for you. That's kind of the point. So, well, cool stuff. Well, let's go a little bit back. Let's go back in time.
Okay.
You didn't just start off your career, as far as I know, as lieutenant governor, right? So
far from.
How did you get here? Kind of tell us about that journey.
So I'm an accountant by trade. Worked in public accounting, worked in industry, found an industry I really loved, which is the payroll PEO industry. And I became a consultant in that industry for a long time. And then finally woke up one day and said, you know, I'm making a lot of people a lot of money. Maybe I should make myself some money, right? And because I loved the industry.
Yeah.
And so got into it. My husband and I started our own company. We built that over 22 years into a national company.
Wow.
We were in 49 states. When I became lieutenant governor, we did an M&A. So we're a little minority partner now in a global company.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, we grew that. When I came into office, we had revenues of $1.5 billion.
Gosh,
And
know how to run a business.
And so you just got it. You put your head down, you work really hard.
Yeah.
But that's where I got to a point where I started realizing that government was really inefficient. And I kept seeing how when I was helping my clients grow, because we worked with a lot of small and medium-sized clients. We had a really large client, couple too, but I just felt that there were so many hurdles they had to do into starting their businesses, right? And I kept thinking government could be more efficient. I know it can be more efficient. And I started saying to my husband, I would really like to serve one day. And he was very supportive. And he'd say, that's wonderful, honey. I don't know when you're going to find the time to do that, right? We have 3 kids. My mother-in-law was still with us at that time. My mother's 96. She lives with us. And honestly, he was scared to death he was going to have to take care of everybody.
Right.
I was going to hit the road. He was going to take care of everybody while I was out saving the world.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge supporter of President Trump. Everybody knows that. I mean, if you look me up, I've been with the president since 2015. And that's how the governor and I met. and the governor wanted a business person that had a fresh set of eyes that could take a look at government and see what we could do better.
Nice.
And I've taken that very seriously as my time as lieutenant governor, working with industries, making sure I work with the technical colleges, connecting people. I think that's probably what I do best, is trying to connect people together to solve problems.
Wow.
So that's how I got here. I love it. I love serving. Every day is every day is something different.
Absolutely. I heard this thing once. They said if you're going to go into politics, your whole family needs to be ready, or at least your husband / spouse.
Yeah, I think you heard me say that, right?
Yeah, well, I think so. They say
you heard me say that.
You can't just run by yourself and think, oh, this is going to be a solo effort. So what has he meant to your career in politics?
Well, I couldn't do what I do without him, because when I'm gone, he does have to fill in the gaps a little bit. My kids were all on board. And unfortunately, politics can be a hard business, especially for your family, right? If people say something negative about you, it really is like water off a duck's back.
Right.
For the person in office. But it really does start to hurt your family, because they know you as a mom, they know you as a wife, they know you as a daughter or sister. So to everybody out there who gets ugly, and I'm really confident that we're going to get some grace back in our world. But just know, like, you're not hurting the person you're gunning to hurt. You're hurting the people that care about them. And so I don't know. I just think David has been amazing. I couldn't ask for a better husband. I mean, he kind of just rolls up his sleeves and filled in the gaps when I had to be gone. And we're a good team, but we ran our company together. We knew how to run as a team. And so it just became a little different kind of strategy in our team once I became lieutenant governor.
Well, that's a beautiful story in itself, because some husbands and wives can't work together very good. So it sounds like you guys figured that
we
little
heard
scenario.
about that an awful lot, like, how do you work together? And I'm like, I don't know. That was really hard for both of us, because we were so used to working, I did different things within QBS. I did all the tax, the regulations, the accounting, and my husband did all the insurance arms and the HR, and that was in sales, that was his. So we came to work together. And then we kind of went to our respective sides of the building. Yeah. And then we did our thing. We go to lunch, but we were always there to bounce ideas back off of. So when I left and kind of went to Columbia, and I'm not really in Columbia all the time, I'm all around the state.
Sure.
And so, it was definitely an adjustment on both of us, because we were used to that team being pretty, close to home.
Yeah, consolidated, and now you're having to go out on the road a little. Well, you ran a PEO. I know a thing or two about PEOs. That's actually how I got my white collar career started. So I do know a little bit about this. You deal with a lot of small business owners, as you said, some big ones, but a lot of small ones. What is the common denominator of a successful business from your perspective? I
think it's really going in and understanding the financial strategy. Nothing to our salesmen, but what I saw during my time, just even as an accountant, right? You have people that have a lot of good ideas. You have a lot of salesmen and women who say, "Oh, I like this industry," but they don't have the financial side. They go in, they get a great big flashy office, and they put a lot of nice furniture in it, and then they start to figure out they got to make money, right? So this is where I think accountants play a big role. Right? And so I think you really have to have realistic expectations. Yeah. You should. I handled business like I handled my own home, right? Don't get yourself too far in debt. Don't make sure you have the financial means to keep growing, right? Save for a rainy day. So there's all these things that it's great to go in and when you decide to make that leap, I understand. But when I did it, and I'm not saying my path is the only path, we started our first office was in our home. And then that grew to a couple offices in a building. My husband owned a couple different businesses, and we took up some office space in there, and we hired somebody. Yeah. And you got to be willing to work it. I could do everything. Even when our company became a national company, I could still run the FedEx machine. I could keep payroll. I could change somebody's benefit. I could do a tax return. I could pull down all the information. You have to always know, because my mindset to be successful was the buck stops with you.
Absolutely.
And so if a client called me and said that something went wrong in the course of what we do for them, whatever it may be, I didn't find an excuse. I apologized and I fixed it immediately. Because I used to tell my people all the time, fix the problem immediately, get your client happy, and then we'll do post-mortem on how this went wrong, right? And how we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's not about the fact that somebody made a mistake or an error. It's about preventing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's just how do you make sure it never, everybody understands the first mistake.
Yeah,
It's the repeated mistakes that people have problems with. So that was always my best advice to people starting their business.
I feel like you said something really important there, and you went the sales route, but I think it happens with a lot of people. You're good at something. It could be good at working with your hands. It happens a lot in the building industry. A guy is really good, or a gal is really good at working with their hands, and so they decide they're going to go into business for themselves, but they don't understand the financial elements of it, or maybe some other element of it that's so critical. So I love that you said that. It is you have to be well-rounded, and I feel like that's something that I know Myrtle Beach and there's some other areas have been focusing on. Hey, let's help small businesses get started. Let's create some kind of support for them, right?
Yep. Because I can remember my public accounting days, and every accountant will tell you this. You know, when you start your career in public accounting, I can remember sitting at a desk and just like you said, like somebody who's really good at plumbing or woodworking, and it's the end of the year and you got to do their tax return, and they come in with a box filled with unopened bank statements and just file folders full of receipts.
Help.
I know, and you start sorting it out, and you're like, you should have really checked these bank statements, right, to make sure that everything cleared, or that you billed. Or then you'd find like, you have a lot of expenses here, but I don't see invoice. Like, oh, I never billed that guy, right? So,
wow.
So those are like the little things, like because obviously you're really good at what you do, and so you're doing it all. You're running a lot of hats. So that's the biggest thing I found back in the day, and now, I mean, there's so many great like programs to help you stay on track that doesn't happen. I'm a little bit older, and so back then we didn't have QuickBooks, right?
Okay.
Like we really didn't have
by
QuickBooks.
hand?
Yeah, well, you had like for the small businessmen, a lot of stuff came in on ledgers.
Oh, sure,
right?
sure.
Like you just didn't have those like easy throw in your desktop kind of programs to help you. So now you do. But it's just
tools.
Yeah, you got tools. You got to use all the tools in your toolbox.
That's right, absolutely. And hire smart people. I got one working for me over here. Let's take a quick time out. All right, cool deal. Thank you for sharing that story. That is really amazing. And I think there's a lot of elements of that can give people hope out there.
Oh, yeah.
You can start a business, and maybe it doesn't have to become a multinational business, but just find something you find fulfillment in. And the thing you said there that I really thought was important is find something that people need. I feel like too often people are just trying to, I see them doing that, so I'm going to go do that. Yeah. It's look for something people need. So there's a reason my construction company does big remodeling. There's not as many of us out there, but that's the thing you need to do in your research.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions as we get to the backside. And I love that you're so open. What an open book and beautiful stuff. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges ahead for South Carolina?
Probably, again, going back to workforce, I think, let's just face it, it's a national thing. People are having smaller families, right? We have a lot of industry that is looking for South Carolina because they love our business model, right? They love that the governor and I, really trying to pull useless regulations away from them and help them grow. And so, that's going to be a continued challenge. School choice. I think we really need school choice in South Carolina. And so the governor and I have used our platform, along with Speaker Smith, came out last year. And I think we are ripe for it. Pretty much every parent I talk to, we know our kids all learn different, right? We have to discipline our kids different. They learn different. You have to talk to them. They're just different. And so parents should have the ability to choose where their children are going to have the most success. And so I think that becomes a big game changer here in South Carolina. Other states have done it. They have seen wild success rates with it, and I think we would too. So I think that's going to be a challenge, something we need to work on, and energy. And
just so I make sure, and I want to hear about energy for sure, but before we get away from that school choice, so are we getting away from the geographical tethering to a certain school system? Is it kind of like that line of thinking?
Yeah, true school choice, that's what it does.
Yeah.
Now, there has to be constraints, right? Because if one area is the best, right, the people who live there have to get first dibs, but they should be able to cross over as long as there's space. But I think what it does is it allows kids to go to maybe charter schools that aren't public charter schools that have some kind of tuition, or parochial schools, right? Like if you live in an area where maybe your school district isn't great, why should you be forced to go there? I mean, and when people say, well, who's coming into those districts? When you have full school choice and parents can guide where their children's dollars are going for education, you'll see charter schools and private schools come into those areas and raise educational expectations up.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, so that's what I talk about with school choice. If you do full school choice, you give parents the ability to do that. And if you have a kid who's really passionate about STEM, then, you know, put them in, like, more STEM schools will come up. Like, we have a great one in Greenville. But, I mean, parents literally camp out for like 2 nights because it's like a line, it's a lottery system, and then whoever's left, right?
It's like Black Friday for schools.
It's like Black Friday for schools. And I've seen pictures back in the day where parents have been lined up and in line for, you know, 2 days.
My gosh. Well, you know what I love about that? That brings warmth to my soul, because it's a parent who cares so much about their child that they're willing to wait for 2 days out there. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
It is a beautiful thing.
You know, when people talk negatively about the human nature, I believe the human nature is still very strong, and you just have to look at it. Just look, because it's out there every day.
I agree. I think society, bad things sell on the news, right? But there are so many people, like, you know, we just went through Hurricane Helene, and I can tell you, for every bad story you heard about somebody acting up at a gas station or whatever, I could tell you 20 stories about good human spirit where neighborhoods came together and people helped the seniors in their area and made sure, maybe gave up their generator because there's a little old couple who's on oxygen and they needed to stay in their home. And I can tell you more good stories than bad, but those never seem to get on the news.
Those are not attention getters for some reason.
I know.
Well, another thing before we get to energy is I've had this analogy I've said for many years, and I believe this is true of business owners, leaders who are trying to maximize their team. You got to look at people like plants sometimes. I think sometimes you water one plant too much, it dies. Some plants you don't water enough, it dies. You fertilize it too much. There is a part of this where nobody looks at a plant and goes, that one's bad because when I water it, it dies. You know, they look at it and we understand that they grow differently through different nutrients and different environments. So why not people, right? So we have to look at people and try to find out how to maximize them. That's our job as leaders. It's not about fitting everybody into a box.
Absolutely.
Powerful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then you said energy is a challenge in South Carolina. Tell me about that.
Energy is a challenge everywhere. Thank God that President Trump is back at the helm, because, you know, like I said, I visit businesses all over the state, and I was at CMC in Casey, South Carolina, and they're a steel recycler. And when President Biden turned off the Keystone Pipeline, their energy bills went up $1 million a month.
Oof, wow.
So, and we felt it, not to that degree, right? Because they're a big energy user, but we felt that. You know, people saw it in their own bills at home, right? We saw it when we went to the gas pumps. We saw it at the grocery store because, you know, groceries get there via gas in trucks to get to the grocery store, right?
That's right.
So energy plays a vital role. 2 years ago in South Carolina, 2 Christmases ago, we almost had a rolling blackout here in our state. It was, you know, it sounds a little cheesy, but it was the perfect storm to the perfect storm.
Right.
It was cloudy, it was cold, it was Christmas Day. We had people using energy at peak levels.
Sure.
And there wasn't enough energy to go around because it hit the whole East Coast, right? So we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. Governor McMaster putting together Power SC to put everything on the table, right? We want to make sure we have dispatchable energy like natural gas. To, you know, because just, you know, everybody talks about solar and everybody talks about, but, you know, solar's only good when the sun's up.
Oh, yeah.
When the sun goes down, solar's off the grid.
Well, and by the way, just while you're on that subject, one thing that happens with solar is it's producing the max power when you really don't need it that much.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the challenge. So,
Yeah, and then we don't have, the batteries aren't where they need to be to even store that. And I think sometimes people, when I talk to people when I'm out, and they'll say, well, we can store that. No, we don't. We can't store that. But, so it's just misconception. Like, people kind of assume. We got to make sure we turn on gas. We need to make sure we put small modular nuclear reactors on the table. We need to make sure nuclear energy stays top of mind. It's very clean and efficient energy. And that, you know, but that all gets baseload up. Natural gas, which we have a lot of in our country, becomes essential to what we need to supply peak loads, right? Because you can turn it on, you can turn it off. When you're running a coal plant or you're running a nuclear plant, so you can tell I've done a lot in the energy space. But when you do those things, those bring up your baseline.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
want to run those things constant. But you always need these other things that you can inject, and that's dispatchable energy. So we are putting everything on the table. I know, like I said, with President Trump getting back in, a lot of those energy policies are going to change for the better for us.
I really do appreciate that you're thinking like this. You've taken a business sense to the governmental level. And the thing that people have to realize is, and again, I'm a part of the building industry, but I've been a business owner and a contributor. The thing is, the end user pays for all these expenses.
Oh, yeah.
So, when we're talking about why does my cheeseburger cost more money? Why does my house cost more money? And we keep talking about affordable living for Americans. If you can create more supply in things that are demanded, that will help control the pricing. So it's always the end user. And some people think the big bad business owner, they're making all this money. Yeah, it's not like that.
Margins are not what people think,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, that's what I always tell people. There's not these big margins that businesses, and unfortunately, the Biden-Harris administration really did make businesses look like the bad guy. And somehow I think we have to get back in our country where we are very proud of success.
Yeah.
When you work hard and you reach success, that is something to be very proud of. And, why that somehow has gotten lost in the translation, I'm not sure. I'm going to be working with our schools so that kids that go to work, because, youth employment is a big initiative for me. I would like to see employment get the same level of recognition on college transcripts as volunteering hours.
Okay, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think perception is reality for a lot of people.
Right.
And when you just see, you have to have so many hours of volunteering, it starts to make it seem like volunteering is more rewarding and beneficial than getting a job.
Interesting, yeah.
And so I think it should be the same. I think we should teach our kids to volunteer and to give of their times and talents. But I don't think we have to make it to where getting a job and learning the life skills they need, right? Showing up on time, being able to talk with each other, solving problems, and then managing their money, right? When you get that paycheck, it's a reality. When my youngest got that paycheck, you hear people say it all the time, like, who is FICA and what is Medicare and why did they rob my check?
Why did they take my money?
Yeah, I mean, what happened here?
Yeah.
But those are the lessons that our kids need to learn at a young age. And so I believe that working is just as important as volunteering. And so I'm going to be working hard to try to make sure that that shows up in the same level as volunteering on our kids' college transcripts.
Love it. Okay, so I got time for one more question.
Okay.
And it's going to start with a statement and then it's going to go into a question. I believe that most great leaders that I've met, and I've been doing this show for a while, I've talked to a lot of great people, there was somebody that maybe galvanized what they were doing as a human being, somebody that meant some difference to them as they were going through their journey. And I believe that you do that naturally in your platform, but was there anybody in your life that you felt like kind of helped you or guided you or inspired you at a time where it helped you be who you are today?
So my dad and my mom, they were great role models. But my dad, he worked really hard and he always taught us the value of hard work and how you should never be afraid of hard work and don't let, he gave us this great pep talk. But my dad wanted to always start his own business. But he was always afraid to do that because he had a good job and had benefits and it put us through. And he was a depression guy, right? Like he remembered when it wasn't, you didn't have a good job and a good job was hard to get.
Right. Okay.
And so, but when my dad was dying, those are the things that he wished he would have done, is taken the risk, right? And so that gave me the, I guess, courage to take the risk and go out on my own. I had a great gig and I was a consultant that was in demand and I worked for a lot of people. But I wanted my own thing, and I can always remember the sadness that my dad, there was that one thing he didn't accomplish, and he always said, don't be afraid. Like the dreams you don't go after will be your biggest disappointments.
Wow.
And so to me, that was what motivated me in everything I do. And then later on, and it's going to sound really strange, but when I wrap it up, hopefully you'll understand what I mean. Queen Elizabeth just struck me as such a strong person, and it was her conviction. And what I liked about her is we live in a society now where everybody wants to make wrong things right? You can do something wrong if it's for a right reason. And she was very steadfast in the fact that wrong is always wrong and right is always right.
Wow.
And you can't make a wrong right. And she was just, I think, in a time when the world was searching for leaders that they should look up to, it stood out to me just in the things she said and the things she did, and I thought, wow, what a courageous woman, right? She put her office and she put God in front of everything, and she literally tried to rule with a moral compass. And
wow.
I think that should be what we all try to do. We all should try to lead with a moral compass.
Man. Oof, wow, that might be a great finale on the show. She knows what she's doing, this Lieutenant Governor. Well, hey, listen, I do appreciate everything you said today. Very, very transparent. I love that you're bringing leadership to this state. I love it that you are taking the businesses and looking at the businessman and saying, I'm going to take care of you, but you're also bringing that same sense to government. I love all this. So good luck to you and everything you're doing. How can people find out more about you?
Well, I'd love for you to follow me. So I'm pretty much on every channel. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on X, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I have a website. So if you go to Pam at PamelaEvette.com, Pam at PamelaEvette.com, and register, I do a quarterly newsletter.
Okay.
And I highlight one big business and one small business, and
nice.
I talk about like great things as I've traveled around the state. My stuff is very positive because I believe we live in an amazing state. And so many good things are going on, and you turn on the TV and you hear about everything that's not going right. I want you to log onto my channels and read my newsletter and go, wow, look at all these great things, because it gives you hope. And as we talked about, when people have hope, the sky's the limit. Yeah, 100%. People have hope, the sky's the limit. That's a great place to sign off. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much. All right. And for you guys listening at home, I think you heard a lot of great leader mentality thoughts today. We appreciate you for listening. Make sure to check us out. Check out our sponsors, Carolina Bays Real Estate and Construction. And we'll see you all next time on the Leader Mentality Show with Rob Clemens.